This is about as good as it gets.
Welcome back, everyone. This flight has got to be hands down one of my favorite early morning departures of all time. Soaring above the clouds as the sun rises above the horizon, truly stunning. Also going to be enjoying some of my mom's home-baked cookies at 22,000 feet. Thanks, Mom. Let's go. All right, everyone, so we're lining up on runway 13 at Lethbridge Airport. I'll show you on the map where that is with the little green airplane. We're going to be taking off to the south, and then as soon as we're airborne, as per the departure procedure, we're going to make a left-hand turn and start our flight northward. Now, as you saw in the beginning when we taxied out front, that light straight ahead of us, that's our taxi light, and it moves with the nose landing gear. So as I'm steering with the rudder pedals, it's actually moving the nose gear. So for those of you that aren't pilots, that's why that little light up there is moving. It's because it's attached to the nose landing gear. And when you take off at night, it's important to look far down the runway and use your peripheral vision and the side runway lights to keep you centered. This is very important on dark nights when there's no moon out. And there's 100 knots. And we are airborne. So we're gonna bring the landing gear up, make sure that all the lights go out, ensuring that the landing gear is up and locked. And then at this point, we're just gonna let the airplane accelerate to about 150 knots. And that gives us a lot of extra airspeed, just in case we do have an engine failure. Because remember, when you're flying a twin, speed is life. Now, fairly soon here, we're gonna make a left-hand turn. I'll show you on the map. That's the airport there. So we're going to make a left-hand turn and then start heading northward for Fort McMurray. But first, we got to go to this waypoint here, Burco, which is on our flight plan. And then from there, up north to Fort McMurray. Now, at this airport, it has what's called a mandatory frequency. So there's someone there manning the radios to give you advisory information on traffic, as well as the weather and anything else you may want to know about what's going on at that airport, but they're not telling you what to do. They're not like an air traffic control tower that's giving you instructions, but rather advising you and other airplanes in the area of their position and what everybody else's intentions are, so you don't run into each other. And these turbine engines are so smooth and quiet. There's almost no vibration in the airplane at all. I absolutely love flying these turboprops. And if you haven't noticed already, we've made that left-hand turn and we're headed northbound. That there is the sleepy little town of Lethbridge. Everybody's probably just waking up at this point, but we're gonna go buzzing over top of their heads. We're through 6,200 feet now. I'm gonna set up and turn on the autopilot. I've got it on heading mode, and I'm just going to be driving the heading with the heading bug. And I want to make sure I got the autopilot on, as well as all of our anti-ice equipment, because if you notice straight ahead, we're going to be going through these clouds that are just above us. And I'm expecting we're going to get some ice because we're below freezing temperatures. And just like that, as we enter the clouds, the ground disappears and we are now actual IFR flying. I love this. Turning on the prop heat, pitot-static heat, windshield heat, the inertial separators, and just like that, we are already through the clouds and on top. Absolutely beautiful. Just enjoy this for a little bit, because every time I watch this video back, it blows my mind that I get to do this. It's one of the best parts of flying, is when you break out on top of the clouds and you get to see a perspective that most people never get to experience. Sitting in the back of an airliner staring through that little window is one thing, but being able to fly through the clouds from the cockpit and get such a panoramic view is totally different. It's so cool. Through 9,000 feet now. I'm setting up the multifunction display so that it displays the correct map information. I'm going to add a little bit more power because as you ascend, you have to compensate for the thinner air. Of course, you're going to burn less fuel and the airplane's going to run more efficient at altitude, but as you're climbing, you still have to add power to make sure we maintain, in this airplane, it's 1,200 foot-pounds of torque per engine until we reach our cruising altitude or until the engines reach their maximum operating temperature. We're through 10,000 feet now, or as us pilots call it, 10,000. So we're going to do our 10,000 foot checks. Actually, lights are off, cabin pressure is climbing, airspeed 140 knots, check the engines, and don't forget you got passengers back there, so it's a good time to make sure that they're happy and that the cabin is the right temperature. I'm going to put in the rest of the flight plan now, so we're going to a waypoint called Igvux, and then I'm going to put in our destination airport, which is Charlie Yank Mike Mike, that is Fort McMurray. And they do have an arrival, so I'm going to input that as well. It's part of our flight plan called the Lexon 4 arrival. And for those of you that aren't pilots, what I mean by an arrival is basically a planned route of waypoints that airplanes can fly that helps set them up for an approach, an IFR approach. And there's a spectacular view out the co-pilot side window. Pure awesomeness. I've selected flight level 220, also known as 22,000 feet, as our cruising altitude. And if you notice, we're actually flying at 130 knots now because we're so high up, the air's quite a bit thinner. So in order to maintain our climb performance, we're not going to be climbing at 150 or 140 knots, rather 130 for the last bit of the climb. Now that we've reached 22,000 feet, we'll turn on the altitude hold on the autopilot. The aircraft will just maintain that selected altitude. And then we'll start our cruise checklist. Turn the auto feather off and just follow this procedure. So cabin pressure we want to make sure is set properly. Altimeters are set to standard 2992. The power set. We're going to set the propeller RPM at 1800. That's where they're balanced at, and that's where I find they run the most quiet. And there's me with my dorky GoPro headset on, and the fact that I'm wearing glasses today makes it that much worse. And when I was on the way to the airport, I stopped at my parents' house and picked up some of my mom's home-baked cookies. They're so good, but there were only 2 left. And if you're curious, this is my mom's secret cookie recipe. Jot it down and forever enjoy the world's best cookies. And if you haven't noticed, we've actually had to climb up to 23,000 feet. That's because as part of our flight plan, there's a point where we turn eastbound and we have to be at odd thousands. And for those of you who aren't pilots or aren't pilots quite yet, I thought I'd do a little explanation of the primary flight display and show you where everything is. This is our altitude indication, 23,000 feet. This is our indicated airspeed as indicated by the airspeed indicator. This is our ground speed calculated using the GPS, our actual speed over the ground. And true airspeed is our indicated airspeed corrected for temperature and pressure. Because you got to remember, we're at high altitude, so we're actually moving a lot faster than our indicated airspeed. And this is our artificial horizon, which shows us if we're in a turn or a climb or a descent. And this is our heading indicator. Basically, all of our navigation information goes on there. And that's our heading, 359 degrees, so pretty much straight north. And this is our GPS track, taken from the GPS and displayed on our heading indicator. And that is our climb rate in thousands of feet per minute. In this little box, it shows us our headwind, tailwind, and crosswind component. And at the top, we have a whole bunch of navigation information. So it shows us what waypoint we're going to, our distance from it, what our direct track is, and all that information is displayed right in front of us. Looking down the engine gauge stack, everything looks normal. And we're on our way to Fort McMurray. Once again, everyone, I appreciate you coming along on this early morning departure. Super, super fun. Stay tuned, check out my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, maybe tell me what your favorite airplane is. And if you have any other questions or if you're curious about becoming a pilot, check out some of these other videos. We'll see you on the next adventure. Bye-bye, everyone.